Hello, Tahira. I am currently interviewing you so that way I can have a better understanding for my ethnography that I'll be writing on nurses in the nursing field. I have a few short questions I'd like to ask, particularly dealing with like your experience within the nursing field, different career paths you've taken as well as education, a few things in terms of like the culture and values that are upheld within the nursing field that I think might be important for my research. So to start us off, can you just tell everybody your name as well as how long you've been working?
Hello, my name is Tahira Stephanie Isom-Atkinson. I have been a nurse for, I guess, a little over 20 years now, and I currently work for Baltimore County as a school nurse.
Prior to you working for Baltimore County, where else did you work at?
I've worked for numerous hospitals in Baltimore City. I started off my career at what was once called North Arundel. It's called Baltimore Washington Medical Center now, one of the larger University of Maryland affiliates in Glen Burnie. While I was there, I also did some agency. I worked at places like St. Agnes and Harbor Hospital. From there, I left and worked at Good Samaritan Hospital for multiple years. Also did agency there. I also worked at St. Joe's Medical Center in Towson, and most of it is critical care work, working adult ICU, ER, IMC.
Alrighty. So what made you want to become a nurse?
I actually had a cousin who's now passed away, who wanted to be a nurse. I actually wanted to be a broadcaster and be on the news. I wanted to be like a news anchor person, but that just didn't seem like it was going to pan out. And I like science, so I first got a degree in biology, and then I went back and got an RN, got my associate's degree in nursing, and got a nursing license.
All right, so you start off by speaking about your education. How do you feel as if education played a role in becoming a nurse? What requirements that you need, and do you feel as if your job makes you continue to pursue furthering your education?
Nursing education starts off really simple and it can be complicated. It is a tenuous curriculum. I feel like you're definitely prepared as far as your book knowledge, but practical use knowledge, it kind of really doesn't kick in until you have more practical use. I don't think that I think that people who go through the associate's program should still have a bachelor's because it's still the same amount of years for your bachelor's education. You have 2 years of like undergrad prerequisite classes, and then you have 2 years of actual nursing courses that go in sequence that you can't change.
All right, you talked about practicality. How would you feel as if you've discussed how being book smart was great, but necessarily prepare you for practical application? What are the cultures and values you feel that are required to be a nurse in a hospital? And what are some of the skills you had to pick up on that you couldn't learn from from reading a book?
The main thing with nursing is that you have to be a good critical thinker. Sometimes you'll get information in a book what may tell you things like, for example, a standard blood pressure. Now I think they say you have to be under 120 over 80. But being a new grad on the floor, if you're working on a dialysis unit, you may come out the room and your patient's blood pressure may be 80 over 40, but that could either be because they've just come from dialysis, or that could be their baseline because they're dialysis patients. Those are some of the nuances that after you understand all of the basic information you learned, you have to be able to kind of connect the dots, and that comes with time and experience.
How would you describe the culture around nurses within the community? Like, how would you say your experience was interacting with other nurses while you're in these places?
Well, they have a phrase in nursing. They always say that nurses eat their young. Nursing can be a very sink or swim career where, as a new grad, you have to be strong enough and diligent enough and tenacious enough to be open enough to accept the things that you can't learn and willing to figure out how to do the things that you're uncomfortable with. If you are a person that your feathers are easily ruffled or you have really soft feelings, you may have a difficult time. With most nurses, once you have proved yourself, meaning you've had one of those nights where you really want to cry and you didn't, then it's usually more, you're more accepted amongst your peers. But if you have something difficult and you're just like crying and seeming out of control and can't think in high stress situations, then you probably won't be accepted and you may not do as well.
Speaking about high stress nights, what would you say would probably be your worst experience that you've had so far with being a nurse?
I don't know what my worst experience would be. There have been a lot of difficult times, and the times are difficult for different reasons. Sometimes you can have issues with physicians who may not be the most respectful. Sometimes you may have issues with your peers. It could be families. It could be having a patient that you lose, that expires when you felt like there could have been some things done differently. There are a lot of reasons. There have probably been more bad nights, and I guess I would care to remember. I don't have like one particular thing. There are probably several, but I've always had overall more good nights than bad nights. So.
All right, so we'll say it probably be one of your best nights working as a nurse.
One of my best nights, I think, probably when I had someone who was young who actually woke up. We have a whole process for people who have like really bad respiratory issues. They have something sometimes it's called SARS and other respiratory issues where their lungs will collapse, and we put them on this thing called a proning bed, and it's an actual bed that looks like Jaws of Life that turns around in a circle. And, sometimes when people go in this proning bed, you don't necessarily know if they're going to wake up and be at full capacity. So I had a younger person, and mind you, I don't usually deal with young people. Most of my hospital experiences have been with adults, meaning at least 18 or over. And this particular person was 17 and had been, we proned him for like 6 or 7 days, which is still a little bit more unusual. But when he was able to kind of wake up after we were able to take him off the proning bed and start pulling out some of the different tubes that we had in him, he kind of woke up and seemed like he was at full capacity. And those kind of things make your efforts seem worth it, because it's really hard when you do that and you're struggling and you're really trying and you're doing everything you can and you lose a patient, because then you're always wondering if it was something that could have been done differently.
You had spoke earlier about how you currently serve as a school nurse for Deer Park Middle Magnet. Can you talk about what made you want to make that change and kind of like discuss further in detail, like, what options are available to those who are nursing students and are trying to maybe get a change of scenery?
So it was kind of like a spontaneous thing. I used to joke with my coworkers about I'm going to get a job with the health department so I can just stamp people's paperwork and just say accepted or denied. That was my joke. And I had a particularly difficult night. It had been several difficult nights because as you get to age, I worked night shifts, 7P to 7A for many, many years. And so I was getting tired. I had 3 people call me on 3 different occasions on one particular day to tell me that Baltimore County was hiring and that I should go give it a try. And so when the 3rd person called me, I did get up, which is unusual for a night shift nurse because we never like to wake up before it's time for us to get up. I got up. I went out to Charles Street to go talk to the people from BCPS, and I was hired on the spot. And so I ended up at Deer Park because the principal who was there, Dr. Taylor, said that she thought I would be a good fit and asked me to come look at her school. So, it's been a pretty amazing ride. Nursing is so wide and it's so vast. You could do nursing and mix that with law, right? We have nurses who do that. They are like... they're not nurse practitioners. They are like delegating nurses. And I can't think of the other title, but the nurses that actually do chart reviews for law firms. You can do plastic surgery and do nursing, right? You have certifications for that. You can do school nursing. You can do infusion nursing, where you just go to people's homes to give them their infusions, whether it's a blood transfusion or chemotherapy. And then, of course, you have all of the different specialties within the hospital, the critical care unit, labor and delivery. Nursing is really wide. You have a lot of outpatient clinic nurses that are what we call like the pre-op and post-op, people who get you prepared for outpatient surgery. So there's a lot that you can do with nursing. It just kind of goes on and on.
All right. Well, I think this should be enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.